December 1944. The Ardennes forest occupied Belgium. Heavy snow blanketed the ground like a white shroud. The pine branches groaned under the weight of ice. The sky was gray and low, as if the world itself was holding its breath. From beneath the trees, black smoke coiled upwards from diesel engines warming in the cold. The Panzerkampfwagen 6 Tiger tanks lay still, hulking, like sleeping predators. Inside a camouflaged bunker, Waffen SS officers puffed cigars and laughed around a war map, their fingers stained with ink and blood. One pointed to a British intelligence note scribbled on the edge: Sherman 76mm, possible upgraded armament. Another nearly choked on his wine. Ein Spielzeug, a toy. It changes nothing. Same tin can, fresh paint. Laughter echoed through the bunker, confident, bitter, arrogant. They believed they knew their enemy. And to them, the Sherman was still a joke, a death trap on tracks, nothing more. Outside, boots crunched over frozen leaves, a bolt slammed shut. Distant artillery howled like a warning from the heavens. The sounds of war were alive, just another day on the Western Front. But war has no ordinary days. Because what those men laughing in that bunker didn't know was that hidden in the frozen belly of that forest, the so-called joke of an American tank was about to change the sound of war itself. And that day, they would witness the beginning of their own end. It didn't begin on the battlefield. It began at a drafting table, deep in the industrial heart of Detroit. The year was 1943, and the Allies had a problem. The standard American tank, the M4 Sherman, was everywhere. Reliable, cheap, easy to mass produce. But against Germany's Panthers and Tigers, it was little more than a coffin on tracks. Frontline reports flooded in. Penetration ineffective at 500 yards. Rounds bouncing off the frontal armor like pebbles on steel. Takes 5 Shermans to take down 1 Tiger. The generals knew. The soldiers felt it in their bones. And the enemy laughed. But inside the Army Ordnance Department, someone asked the uncomfortable question: what if the joke could shoot back? That's when the transformation began. They kept the Sherman's chassis, proven, familiar, but gave it a new heart, a 76mm gun, longer, faster, deadlier. Designated the M1A2, this gun could pierce German armor, where the old one merely scratched the paint. It wasn't a revolution, it was evolution. Raw, pragmatic, American. They reinforced the turret, swapped in a better suspension, the HVSS system, improved turret rotation, refined the optics, and stabilized the ride, critical for firing on the move. The result? A new model, unofficially dubbed the Easy 8, the M4A8E8. A sleeping monster, hidden in the skin of a familiar friend. But not everyone was convinced. Even within the U.S. command, resistance brewed. Some generals mocked the changes. Quantity beats quality. Speed wins wars. Why fix what already works? General Patton himself was rumored to have called the upgrades unnecessary overcomplication. And in the secret testing grounds of Ardennes, the new gun overheated. Turrets jammed. Shells veered off unpredictably. One technical report bluntly stated, improved firepower may have compromised crew survivability. Some engineers began calling it the Frankenstein tank. Not fast enough to flank, not strong enough to face a Tiger head-on. To many, it was a dead-end machine, a mechanical mistake on treads. But the battlefield had different plans. No one imagined that inside that Frankenstein, a monster was waiting to wake up. It was December 1944. Belgium, the Ardennes, a frozen forest, white snow, black smoke, and the dull, distant growl of engines. German engines, growing louder. The Battle of the Bulge had begun, and the brand-new M4A3E8, the so-called Easy 8, was about to face its baptism by fire. No more tests, no more blueprints. Now, only war. They rolled out in columns, fresh paint, shiny tracks, confident crews. Some even thought they were driving the future, but the future wasn't ready. From the tree line came a flash, then thunder. A German 88mm shell tore through the lead Sherman. One shot, one kill. The tank brewed up in seconds. 4 men died instantly. The 5th burned alive, screaming into the snow. The Easy 8's upgraded armor? Still not enough. The new gun could barely scratch the front plate of a Tiger at range. Radio chatter turned frantic, taking fire from 2 o'clock, requesting smoke. We can't flank. They're punching straight through us. German gunners wrote in their reports. Same Sherman, new name, still dies the same. Some American tankers began to question the upgrades. The gun was longer, sure, but harder to maneuver in dense woods. The HVSS suspension gave a smoother ride, but was vulnerable to mines and freezing mud. Turret motors froze in sub-zero conditions. Optics fogged. Engines stalled. A tank is only as strong as its weakest part. And in the chaos of the Ardennes, everything broke. Easy 8s burned beside older Shermans. To the Germans, they were just taller targets. In one brutal engagement near Bastogne, a Tiger commander radioed back to HQ. We've destroyed 8 new Shermans. If this is America's answer, the war will last forever. Back in Washington, the headlines read, New tank, same problems. Sherman upgrades failed to impress. And in the war rooms, doubt spread like oil on fire. Had they made a better machine or just a different one? The experiment was failing. The enemy still ruled the battlefield. And for the men inside those steel coffins, the Easy 8 felt like a bad joke with a longer punchline. But the war wasn't over, and neither was the tank. What no one realized was that this defeat, this humiliation, was only the beginning. The Easy 8 hadn't failed. It just hadn't found its moment yet. No one noticed it at first. To most commanders, the Easy 8 was just another Sherman, slightly lower profile, a bit smoother on the road, a technical footnote in an ocean of mass-produced armor. But inside the turret, something had changed. It began with the single tank commander near Bastogne. Pinned under snow and shell fire, his platoon was outnumbered and facing a Tiger I from less than 800 meters. The usual order would have been a retreat, but this time, he held position. He fired, and the round didn't bounce. The new 76mm M1A1 gun, fitted with HVAP, high-velocity armor-piercing ammunition, tore through the Tiger's frontal armor, something the older Shermans had failed to do time and time again. The German crew never knew what hit him. Radio logs later described it simply. Tiger destroyed. One shot. Unknown Sherman variant. That day, a whisper spread through the armored corps. Crews began to notice. The vertical volate suspension was gone. The ride was smoother, faster, less punishing on the men. The improved 4GAA engine gave it more torque on frozen roads. And the gun? God, the gun finally gave them a fighting chance. Tanker logs from December 22 read, "This one's different. It fights back." It wasn't just about firepower. It was how the tank handled, how it could corner through ruins, how it could crest the hill, fire, and disappear before the enemy could lock in. In the dense forests of the Ardennes, where mobility meant survival, the EZ-8 became something the Germans hadn't expected: a predator. Panthers began burning at close range. Tigers, previously invincible, were now being flanked and destroyed in ambushes led by daring crews who finally had a tool that matched their courage. The shift was quiet at first, just statistics buried in battle reports, but those who faced it saw the truth before anyone else. A Wehrmacht officer, after surrendering near Huflesi, was interrogated. His words were cold and simple. They were faster than they had any right to be, and they didn't miss. The Americans hadn't built a better tank by numbers. They had built a better tank by learning, by adapting. And the EZ-8 was just getting started. By early 1945, the laughter had stopped. What began as a scattered anomaly was now a pattern the Wehrmacht could no longer ignore. Reports from the eastern Ardennes, the Ruhr pocket, and even the outskirts of Cologne painted the same grim picture. The Shermans had changed, and they were no longer dying by the dozens. Captured field dispatches tell the story. Panzer IV column intercepted outside Reimagined. 3 tanks disabled in 90 seconds. Sherman variant unknown. Gun appears to have higher velocity than standard models. Another simply stated, "We underestimated them. That mistake is costing us the war." The EZ-8 wasn't just surviving, it was dominating. Its 76mm gun, when paired with the tungsten-cored HVAP rounds, could punch through 120mm of armor at under 1,000 meters. That meant even the side armor of a Tiger I or the frontal plating of a Panther at closer ranges was no longer safe. But it wasn't just the gun. It was the speed, the coordination, the confidence. Tank crews who had once feared the battlefield now hunted it. Using terrain, speed, and superior communication, EZ-8 units began deploying hit-and-fade tactics previously unthinkable for Shermans. From the snowy hills of Luxembourg to the shattered streets of Aachen, entire German tank formations were being harassed, flanked, and destroyed by what they once called rolling coffins. And the sound? There was something unforgettable about it. Veterans described the screech of metal treads and the thunder of the 76mm recoil echoing off ruined buildings. A surviving Panther commander, interrogated after the war, described it in one sentence: "We knew we had seconds to live." The EZ-8 became a symbol, not just of American engineering, but of something deeper. Of pressure finally pushing innovation, of pragmatism triumphing over perfectionism, of mass production, when combined with tactical intelligence, overwhelming even the most advanced designs. By March 1945, German morale on the Western Front was collapsing. Entire panzer divisions avoided engagement where EZ-8 units were reported. Luftwaffe recon pilots were tasked with identifying E-8 formations specifically. And in one intercepted communication between SS tank commanders near the Weser River, a chilling line was recorded: "The new Shermans do not die like the old ones. Be cautious, or be buried." The war was turning, and behind that turning tide rolled a machine once mocked by its own soldiers. Now it was feared by the Reich itself. The Tiger was a beast. Heavy, imposing, mythic. It was built like a cathedral of war, an altar of German engineering and arrogance. It required precision fuel, elite crews, and could only be transported on reinforced rail lines. When it worked, it was devastating. But war does not wait for perfection. Across the battlefield, a different philosophy rumbled forward. The M4 A3E8 EZ-8 wasn't elegant. It wasn't a masterpiece of metallurgy or armor theory, but it worked. And more importantly, it kept working. Where German doctrine relied on specialized tanks for every role, American doctrine embraced adaptability. Shermans could be modified in the field, upgraded between battles, and repaired in hours, not days. Commanders didn't have to protect the EZ-8 like some rare artifact. They used it again and again and again. And in that relentless usage, a doctrine emerged. Power was not in perfection. Power was in presence. While the Nazis poured resources into fewer, heavier tanks, the Allies sent waves of adaptable machines, backed by an industrial engine that never slept. By 1945, American factories had produced over 49,000 Shermans. Germany had barely managed 1,300 Tigers. It was not a fair fight. It wasn't meant to be. In a war of attrition, reliability is deadlier than brilliance. Logistics become weapons, adaptability becomes strategy, and pragmatism becomes doctrine. Even General Heinz Guderian, the architect of German armored warfare, admitted late in the war, "Our tanks were superior, but their numbers and speed overwhelmed us." But it went deeper than steel and oil. It was a clash of ideologies. On one side, a totalitarian regime obsessed with perfection, hierarchy, and myth. On the other, a democratic system driven by iteration, innovation, and the brutal logic of good enough to win. The EZ-8 wasn't a tank. It was a manifestation of this logic. It told the world, we don't need to build monsters. We only need to build something strong enough and give it to everyone. In that sense, the EZ-8 wasn't designed to impress. It was designed to liberate. From France to the Rhineland, it did just that.
They laughed. That's how it began. On factory floors in Bavaria and briefing rooms in Berlin, the Americans were a joke. The Sherman, a rolling coffin, undergunned, under-armored. The Tommies and Yanks will need 10 of those to take down one Tiber, they sneered. And for a while, they were right. But war is not won by laughter. It is won by what survives. By December 1944, in the frozen ruins of the Ardennes, the laughter had stopped. Tiger crews who once hunted Shermans like prey were now being stalked by swarms of them, fast, upgraded, relentless. The EZ-8 didn't come alone. It brought artillery, air support, fuel, replacement parts, morale. It brought momentum. Its 76-millimeter gun, once mocked, was now ripping through Panther armor at 500 meters. Its tracks clawed through mud and snow, while German panzers froze in place, out of fuel, out of time. By the time the Allies reached the Rhine, German tankers were abandoning their machines before they even saw combat. Why fight a tide you can't stop? And those who still held the line? They whispered a different tune. They keep coming. Always another one. We kill one. 2 more arrive. It wasn't a tank anymore. It was a wave. And the wave broke the Wehrmacht. By May 1945, the Third Reich had collapsed. Tiger Eye production had long ceased. Factories lay in ruins. The invincible machines rusted in fields they once dominated. Meanwhile, Shermans, many of them EZ-8s, rolled on. Through Berlin, through Korea, through history. They laughed when they saw it. A squat, boxy little tank with no mystique, no terror in its silhouette, no name carved into legend. They stopped laughing when that silhouette kept reappearing, when its engine never stopped roaring, when the sound of its gunfire became the soundtrack of defeat. And in the silence that followed, only one sound remained. The thunder of something that wasn't supposed to work, but did. And in that thunder, the war changed forever.